Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Lockdown Coder, coming to you from a very cold Sydney office and talking about coding and, at the moment, JavaScript in 10 minutes. So yesterday we looked at simple data types and we never actually finished. We did numbers, we did strings, we did booleans. There are a couple of other kind of data types you need to know, and those are null and undefined. And so whenever you want to represent something that's empty or just hasn't been declared yet, I talked about variables yesterday. Well, a variable really is just a storage bucket that stores data, or data I should say, being from Australia. And in any program you'll want to store data so you can remember it for such a times later in the game or later in the program. So when you declare some data or name a variable name to hold some data, the container if you will, and you don't put any data in it, that variable is undefined. So for instance, if I did this, and remember I declared a variable like this var. Well, I probably should declare it like this because this is new JavaScript land. Well, it's not even new now, but let's go with this. Let's say I wanted to define, let's say I was writing a program about employees in my company and I wanted to do first name, surname, and so I declared first name and I didn't set that equal to anything. Okay, so if I hit enter, JavaScript, the JavaScript engine tells me what is actually in first name at the moment, and there's nothing in it because I didn't put anything in it, so it's undefined. Okay, so if I then let's verify that just in case we don't believe it by typing first name. Now the first thing you notice here is that I start typing it FIR, and what does it come up with? First name, which means that first name is now in memory. Chrome has put it, or JavaScript has put it in Chrome's memory, so it knows about this variable bucket that I've created, this container, but there's nothing in it at the moment. It's empty. So if I can hit tab instead of having to type it all out. If it comes up with the rest of the name, you hit tab, fills it in for you. You've probably done that in other programs. And then if you hit enter, it'll tell you the value. But as I told you yesterday, that Chrome will tell you the value even before you ask for it. It's that clever. So if I hit enter, it'll say undefined, right? Now, undefined is a particular data type, if you like. I'm not sure if that's strictly correct. Sorry if it's not. But undefined is an actual thing. Look, undefined. There you go. It comes up in purple, so it's an actual thing. If I did this, let's say, blah. You can't just write anything, right? Blah is not defined, it says, right? So, but undefined is defined. Undefined is defined. Get that? So that's an actual thing. And first name, any variable you create and don't set to value, JavaScript will set to as undefined. Okay, so it means kind of empty, undeclared. All right. So that means that if I did this instead, first name equals. Notice I'm not going to do let first name because I've already done it. And if I did this again, oh, okay, it actually did allow me to do it again. So I was thinking it might not because I'd already declared it. But if I did let first name equals Pete and hit enter, it says undefined again, which I wasn't quite expecting. But if I look at I will explain that in a little note later. First name, and I hit enter. Now it says Pete because the value Pete is now stored in first name. So you've just learnt how to declare a variable. Okay. And I'm just trying to think how long we've got. We've got about 5 minutes. So you've learned how to do that. Now there's another empty value called null. I'll probably stay away from that. That kind of means empty as well. But null is such a weird thing. Even though it's nothing, null is actually an object in JavaScript, which is really weird. And null kind of equals undefined. Well, we can actually check that. We can, if you want to compare two things in JavaScript, you use equals equals. So undefined equals null is actually asking the question, is undefined equal to null? And JavaScript says true. So null's kind of nothing as well, but you will see that, but hopefully you don't really need to use it. You might need to test things for null if things are set to null, because they're kind of defined if they're set to null, I think. Not doing very well here. I keep saying I think. This whole kind of undefined null and empty thing is a little bit strange in JavaScript, but really, yeah, don't use null if you can get away with it. Just know that those are the two empty values. Like, just to show you the comparison as well, if I said 1 equals to 1, then we're saying is 1 equal to 1, and obviously that's true, right? So if I said 1 equals 2, we're saying is 1 equal to 2? Well, that's not true, it's false. So there you go. So that's undefined and null. And just to maybe show you something else with those two things, type of is something that tells you the data type of something. So we've been talking about numbers and stuff and all that. So if I went type of 100, it tells me it's a number. If I went up, by the way, if you press the up arrow, sorry, on your keyboard, you'll get the previous command you typed in, so you don't have to keep typing them out again. You can just hit your arrow, and you'll keep on getting the previous one if you keep on pressing up arrow, and lo and behold, if you press down arrow, it'll go back the other way. So it's very handy to know, so you don't have to keep typing things in. Now if we went type of hello, remember our strings? That's a string. So that's a string. Now let's do the other two, and I'm not even sure myself what's going to happen here, to be honest. Let's go undefined. It says undefined, so in theory undefined is a type, because JavaScript is saying undefined. What's the type of undefined? Well, it's undefined, so therefore undefined is a data type, right? Absolutely stupid. And then if we go null, apparently null's an object. So this is just one of those weird things in JavaScript. It's an object. All right, so we've got a minute or two. Let's start talking about the complex data types. We've covered simple data types. Let's do clear. One thing you will always use in every program you ever write is a list of stuff, right? Remember those shopping lists that your mum used to send you out with to Coles and Woolies or the local supermarket? And she gave you a shopping list, and it was all written down in a list, and you kind of understood that, even though you were a little kid or maybe a bigger kid. It was easy to understand, right? So why do people get confused when they're doing lists in computer languages? I have no idea. It's just a list of stuff, right? So a list of stuff would be, in JavaScript, would be written like this. Here we go, the essential shopping list. So milk, bread, whiskey, good for lockdown, and of course donuts. So that is the definitive list, shopping list in lockdown, let me tell you. And if I hit enter, you see what it's done already. It said underneath, it's saying there's a list of 4, and it's given me the 4 things. And even better, when I hit enter, it has a little arrow here. If I click on the arrow, it tells me the first entry is milk, second one is... So you've got a list of 4 things there, starting at 0, note that. And that is called an array. Look at the bottom, it says array, prototype, that means array. So we've just created, oh, why does my phone keep going off all the time when we're doing this? Alrighty, so I've got to finish now. That's a list. An array, a list is an array. An array is a list, okay? A list is an array. An array is a list. And we can represent all kinds of lists in coding, JavaScript, and we often need to, like in games. You know, we have lots of lists of stuff, lists of enemies, lists of weapons, lists of achievements, lists of scores, lists of players, you know. So lists will come in everything you ever do. So learn how to do a list, learn arrays, and we'll go on to objects tomorrow. We might spend the whole time on objects, actually. So this has been the Lockdown Coder, struggling with undefined and null. Shame on me. And I will see you for episode 3 tomorrow.